Hello, princesses, and welcome back to Not Fit for Print Beauty with me, Rebecca. Well, look what we have here. It's a new Tom Ford Wet Dry eyeshadow palette. This is Hazy Sensuality. So Tom Ford, we'll look at it more, don't worry. Tom Ford has released 3 new palettes in the wet dry formula. How do you know it's wet dry? Because it has the initials TF right there in the middle. That's the first indicator of what the formula is. I have been so in love with his cream that it made me start revisiting the wet dry and see the demo for who made all the difference in my appreciation of the wet dry formula. It's you guys. We'll talk about that later. Again, there are 3 and they are the outrageously high price of $90 each. Oh my goodness, I know it's quite shocking, but that is what we're looking at in luxury makeup. Again, there is high end and then there is luxury. This is in the luxury category. Quite obviously, I guess, with that price. So I picked up Hazy Sensuality. I would have loved to pick up all 3 of the new ones, but that's 90 times 3, and I couldn't do it. But I picked the best one I could for me. I just love me the pinks, you know that. But there's also a Peachy Dawn shade and a shade called Golden Hour. Both are beautiful, but this one spoke to me the most. So when I picked one, that was the one I picked. I want to show you some swatches of it in studio and natural light. And of course, we're going to do a demo, and I'm going to talk to you about the game changer for me with this particular Tom Ford formula. And it's definitely something I want you to stick around from, because I think the reason I have grown to love this particular shadow formula, and I never did before, is pretty special and has to do with you guys. All right, so let's first go to some swatches. Here we are in studio lighting. On the left are all 4 shades dry, and then on the right are all 4 shades wet. This is the wet dry formula after all, and it is a very different look wet than it is dry. So take a look at that there on my arm in studio lighting. And then let's step outside today into the warm California sunshine and look at them there. Again, on the left is the dry version of the formula, and on the right are the shades wet. And I use a little bit of MAC Fix Plus, but you can use a setting spray, you can use a water, anything you want. Okay, now that we've seen that, I want to go recreate this look that you see right here today. Boy, it's pink, it's blingy, I love it. Speaks to me, let me just tell you, matches my set too. All right, let's go right now to the demo. Okay, let's whip up a bit of hazy sensuality here to the best of my ability, hazy ability. You know, one of the most fun things about my career writing about this stuff for magazines was being able to, I'm getting to a point here, stay with me, learn from the artists themselves. And, you know, I guess I'm a pretty good student. I'm a nerd, right? So I like to listen, take mental notes, and learn. But nowadays, I'm learning from you guys as well. And whenever I said that I didn't like the Tom Ford wet dry formula, you guys would give me a lesson and say, you gotta wet it. Forget wet dry, Rebecca, wet. And I started wetting my wet dry formula and advising others who said they too didn't love the wet dry formula, and it's game changing. So if you have a Tom Ford wet dry, listen to this community, because I did, and they told me use it wet. And boy, changed. But this is the first time I'm using this one. Couldn't resist that it was pink. So I'm going to start with, I am using a bunch of Sonia G brushes today, and I'm actually going to start with this one dry. Once I have found, once you wet shades, any shades, they're wet, you know? So I'm just going to do a nice little covering dry first with this shade right here. And it's a very sparkly shade, and I'm just going to cover the eye and get into the inner corner with it. And then we'll start wetting things, because once it's wet, you know, you can't go back. That doesn't rhyme, it should have. Okay, so then what I'm going to do, I don't spray the shades. You can, I mean, these are explicitly made to be worn wet or dry, so you really can, but I don't like to. I like to just kind of, I'll kind of take, this is a MAC Fix Plus, you know, you can really use whatever you want, any sort of setting spray or water or really whatever you want. I kind of like wet my hand a little bit, and then I wet the brush just a bit. I like to do it that way. So let's go into this pretty pink shade here. And yeah, I've learned, just use them wet, Rebecca. And I just like them better wet. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm just going to take this wet, the wetter the better. That one did rhyme. And put that, I just think they're so much more impactful when they're wet. put them next to each other here. And I don't use too much water because I don't want it kind of wet beyond. And I try to go into the corner. I'm super careful. But look how pretty this is. And if you, like me, like a nice sparkly pink shadow, then you're going to be super happy with that. And so that is what I'm doing. Just using, I like MAC Fix Plus, but you have whatever you like. Water works too, guys. It really does. There really are no rules. Those of you who are clinging to rules with your makeup, you're not having enough fun with it, honestly. And don't let those rules prevent you from having fun, please. Just experiment. If you don't like it, Wayne Goss always said this, right? If you don't like it, just go take it off. Just makeup. But I like this one, so there's no need to take this off. And I am going to take another and run it under. I'm not even going to get it wet. I got it wet enough in the corner here. And just run it under. I do like to do that first layer, though, dry. Once I start going in there and getting this palette wet. And I admit, I like to leave the palette open until I know it's dry. I don't want to encourage any sort of growth of anything. But isn't that pretty just already? Boy, I just love pink. Okay, but let's go ahead. This brush is already wet. I think that's going to be enough to go into this right here. Again, I go into the bottom just a little bit, guys. And I just want to darken and lift this corner here. That's all I want to do. And this brush is wet enough as it is. Yes, it still has the pink shade on it. I'm okay with that because I'm layering them anyway. So that doesn't bother me. And I just want to just darken and lift a little bit. And I like the way that looks. Same brush here. Wet enough there. Into the bottom. Ooh, liking this. All right, so that leaves us one shade that we haven't used. There's just nothing bad about this. And I'll tell you, if I hadn't used it wet, part of the wet dry, I would not like it. So you guys, as usual, save the day for me. Let's go in dry with this shade right here and just add a nice little bit, just a little bit of luster there. And if I'd wanted to be a little more lustery, then I could have wet it. But just that combination of wet and dry, you guys, I am loving it. Look at how pretty that is. Look at that. And of course, there are 2 more of these new palettes. But let me tell you from you guys, there are invaluable lessons I have learned through being a student of people that know their stuff. And some of the people who know their stuff are right here in this community. And that is why I now use them wet and dry. The name is Wet and Dry, Rebecca. You'd think you'd know. I didn't really. I got to admit it, I didn't. And it's really changed the way I look at it. This is an absolutely beautiful palette. If you like pink and you like just like shimmers, hey, Pink Sparkle, we're talking to you in our community there. I can't see how you would resist this one. But the other 2 are beautiful as well. Did you pick up one of these 3? And how do you feel about wet, dry shadows? I mean, theoretically, you could wet any shadow and use it. Again, there are no rules, but these tend to be formulated to work specifically with that. So tell me if you do. Tell me if you haven't tried it yet. Tell me if you have, since we've started talking about it here on this channel. I need to know everything from you guys. It's what makes us a community. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I sure hope that you did. Hey, if you haven't already done so, do make sure that you subscribe to this channel so we can continue to grow. Come over and say a big hello and a follow over on TikTok and Instagram too. And you can become a bigger part of this channel by becoming a member for Members Only Live and behind the scenes gossip and content, or you can give super thanks as so many of you have done. But truly, in any way that you are here, I'm just happy to have you, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.